What lies beneath Astarion's seductive facade? Is it a quest for power, a cry for redemption, or something far more complex? Now, Astarion is a vampire spawn who endured 200 years of enslavement under the vampire lord Cazador Zar. This prolonged period of captivity and abuse significantly shaped his personality. Now, his primary motivation is survival, which manifests in his self-serving attitude. Centuries of servitude taught him that looking out for oneself is paramount, leading to a worldview where personal gain often trumps altruism. Now, to accomplish this, Astarion employs manipulation as a tool for control, which can be seen as a direct response to his own lack of autonomy during his enslavement. His charm, deceitfulness, and sometimes cruel humor are strategies to regain the control he was denied for so long. This behavior also reflects an underlying fear of vulnerability. Astarion also displays narcissistic traits, not in the clinical sense necessarily, but as an adaptive response to his trauma. Focusing on his appearance, disdain for others' opinions, and his need for admiration can be seen as coping mechanisms for his deep-seated insecurities and a way to reclaim dignity lost during his years of subjugation. He also often indulges in pleasures reflecting a hedonistic approach to life, which might be his way of kind of compensating for the years of deprivation and control he experienced. His default stance towards the world is one of cynicism, stemming from a life where trust was never rewarded. This cynicism serves as both a shield and a way to preemptively manage expectations and emotional pain. Now, despite all of that, he's not without his vulnerabilities. Low self-esteem, for an example. Despite his outward confidence, Astarion struggles with self-worth, especially concerning his identity beyond being a tool for Cazador. His self-loathing, hidden under layers of charm and wit, occasionally surface, revealing a man unsure of his value outside of his survival skills. He also deals with a fear of rejection and abandonment. His history has made him extremely sensitive to rejection and abandonment. His relationships, therefore, are fraught with tests of loyalty and love, often pushing boundaries to see how far he can go before someone leaves him. On top of that, he's also dealing with an identity crisis. Astarion's identity is complex. He's caught between who he was before his vampirism, what he became under Cazador, and who he might be if he could define himself anew. This leads to an existential struggle regarding his place in the world and his own nature. Now, despite his initial reluctance, Astarion shows great potential for empathy and deep connection, particularly in his interactions with the player character and other companions. These relationships can be pivotal in his healing process, offering him a mirror to see parts of himself he's neglected or denied. His journey through the game can lead to self-discovery, where he might confront his past, learn to trust, and perhaps find redemption, or at least a new sense of self. This transformation is not guaranteed, but is contingent on the choices made by the player. The self-preservation was king for Astarion. His life under Cazador was about enduring day after day, learning to navigate and manipulate his environment for minimal comfort and respite. His survival instincts are also hyper-developed, with every decision being weighed against personal benefit. This mindset is evident in his reluctance to engage in acts without clear personal gain. His survivalism also shows through his cautious approach to freedom, where he sometimes seems to revert to old behaviors, even after gaining his liberty, suggesting a deep-seated fear that freedom might be temporary. Now, Astarion's manipulation is sophisticated and often charming. He uses flattery, deceit, and sometimes intimidation to control situations. This control can be seen as an antidote to the helplessness he felt under Cazador. For example, his interactions, especially in romantic context, often start with games or tests to gauge the other person's loyalty or gullibility. His manipulation isn't just for survival, but also for affirmation of his own power, which he was denied for centuries. His humor, often at the other's expense, might be another form of asserting control over the emotional landscape around him. Astarion's narcissism isn't just vanity, but a psychological armor. His obsession with his appearance and his insistence on being admired or feared reflects an attempt to rewrite the narrative of his life from victim to victor. His narcissism serves to mask the self-loathing that comes from years of degradation, although moments of vulnerability reveal this as a facade. His need for validation, especially in moments where his control slips, shows the cracks in the narcissistic shell. His hedonistic tendencies are often a direct rebellion against the deprivation and control he experienced. Astarion seeks pleasure in food, drink, intimacy, often with reckless abandon that suggests a live for today because tomorrow might not come attitude. This hedonism is both a coping mechanism and a reclaim the pleasure of a life he was denied or used against him by Cazador. His cynicism is born from betrayal and the harsh reality of his life. He expects the worst from people, which sometimes self-fulfills, as he pushes boundaries or sabotages relationships before they can hurt him. His distrust makes it hard for him to form genuine bonds, as he is always on guard for betrayal or manipulation. This trait is nuanced. While it protects him, it also isolates him, creating a vicious cycle of loneliness. Despite his bravado, Astarion's self-esteem is fragile. His need for external validation, coupled with his self-deprecating humor, indicates a man who doesn't fully believe in his own worth. His vampirism, which you can't see in mirrors, metaphorically represents his struggle with self-image and identity. On top of that, his past has instilled in him a profound fear of being left alone or betrayed. This fear manifests in testing relationships, pushing away those close to him to see if they will fight to stay or preemptively leave, or hurting before he can be hurt. His fear is so ingrained that even after gaining allies, he might sabotage good relationships out of this fear. Astarion is also in a constant battle with his own identity. Was he ever truly the person he was before Cazador? Can he be someone new after all that he's been through? Now, his vampirism also adds another layer. He's neither fully alive nor dead, kind of caught in a liminal state, which mirrors his psychological state. His journey involves reconciling these parts of himself, especially if he seeks redemption or a new life. Astarion's path to empathy involves learning to see beyond his own needs. His interactions with companions, especially those who show him kindness without the expectation of anything in return, can begin to thaw his cynicism. His potential for connection is significant, as seen in moments where he defends or shows genuine concern for others, often against his initial instincts. Now, his redemption arc, if pursued by the player, often involves confronting his past, acknowledging the pain he's caused, and choosing a path forward that isn't dictated by survival or revenge, but by self-definition. This might mean learning to live for something beyond himself, finding meaning in helping others, or simply being free. In conclusion, Astarion's character is a compelling case of how extreme circumstances can mold personality, behavior, and one's view of the world. His psychological profile is rich with conflict, showing the struggle between his darker survivalist instincts and the potential for genuine human connection and self-improvement. His story in Baldur's Gate 3 provides a narrative of trauma, survival, and the possibility of redemption, making him one of the game's most nuanced and beloved characters. Well, anyway, let me know what you think. Do you prefer Astarion's redemption arc, or do you let him become the vampire ascendant? And be sure to follow along as I go through the psychological breakdown of each Baldur's Gate 3 companion, because they're all just so fascinating. Thank you for watching. Until next time.